Greetings, kindred, and a happy new moon to you all. So, I can't believe nearly 2 weeks have gone by already. But here we are at the micro new moon that takes place on the 29th of June at 3:52 here in the GMT time zone. On the 28th of June at 22:52 in the EDT time zone. And on the 29th of June at 12:52 in the AEDT time zone. So this new moon will take place in the sign of Gemini. Now when I first looked at this chart and done a little bit of research, wow, it's really kind of powerful. It's quite dominating actually, and yeah, a little bit all over the place. There's some aspects going on that are really quite strong, and they have been pretty strong lately. But, you know, when the Black Moon Lilith is kind of in the mix, it just makes things a little bit more kind of serious. Do you know what I mean? So, a new moon in Gemini. Now, if this was probably a full moon in Gemini, I'd probably read this a little bit differently, like numerologically. So we see there's the moon's at 6 degrees. And if there was just 1 6 sitting there, then yeah, I would say it was more on a positive level. But because it's a double 6, it makes it a little bit negative. Kind of gives more of a negative aspect of the number 6, which is really all about humanitarian values. So it being 2 6s there is kind of more weaker. It weakens it. And that would make sense because the Black Moon Lilith is conjunct at 8 degrees. So, and there's a lot of other stuff going on here as well, but just this in itself kind of shows me that it's going to be a very challenging time, because the Gemini energy can be very much in their heads, you know, very much disconnected from the heart or from emotions. So there's a lot of logic and reasoning going on. And I think maybe to avoid, you know, what is really being felt right now. So there is a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of shifts and changes occurring. And, you know, that's apparent here with Uranus in conjunction to the North Node. Now, at the end of July and the beginning of August, Uranus and the North Node will come into a much closer conjunction. There'll be a 1 degree separation between them. So that's when this conjunction is going to be at its peak. And so, you know, the North Node does represent like local communities or societal attitudes, you know, when it comes to a global event. And with Uranus, I mean, Uranus is all about erratic and, you know, sudden changes, sudden shifts that are kind of unexpected. And with the North Node at 22 degrees, it's like Uranus is pushing us to overcome our self-limitation, to reach the heights of higher consciousness. And normally that represents like an awakening, a very powerful one. It's, you know, quite enlightening. You know, Pallas was in a closer conjunction. So that was already really happening. But now we're getting like Pallas has moved on. So There has been justice, there has been strategizing, we have come to terms with a lot. But now the North Node and Uranus are kind of on their own. There was another little stellium at the full moon, which was a little bit overwhelming because stelliums can be a little bit overwhelming. But now it's like just those two. So a lot more clarity is coming in. It's like the dust is settling. But, like I said, things may feel or seem pretty dark at the moment. With the Geminian energy, it's like it can be a little bit erratic emotionally. It's like sudden emotional outbursts. I mean, when Geminis suffer with nervous energy, it's all about, just blurting things out. Sometimes it could be nonsensical, or it's just when they're in nervous energy, they tend to talk a lot and probably tend to talk really fast as well. And, another thing I see here is with the Black Moon Lilith at 8 degrees in Gemini. Remember, the Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, again, is all about authenticity. And, even with the Sun and Moon in Gemini, again, that can represent in its negative form superficiality. So it's like, are we being true to ourselves? Or, are we just not ready to integrate into our inner beings all the kind of information that's been coming in, So, Gemini is very much ruled by Mercury. Mercury is all about the mind, the way we think, our interests. So in Gemini, to me, that's what it means. And it can also be like an imbalance of the mind, of decision making. We change our minds a lot with the Geminian energy. So things can seem pretty erratic, probably in the media, because, we all connect to the media through the Geminian energy, so whether that be in technology or information coming in. So the information right now can be very confusing, and there is a shadow cast over it, and with Ceres nearby as well. Even though Ceres is not in conjunction, she's here in Gemini, and Ceres does represent, it's all about nurture. It's all about food resources and children and children's needs. I mean, most of the little asteroids here do hold the value of children as well. And, the goddess Ceres in Gemini is in opposition to Pluto, who's in retrograde at the moment in Sagittarius. So, Pluto's exposing something, but maybe it's just too much to get our heads around or our hearts around, more to the point. Or maybe we're detached from our emotions, where we're just following the status quo, and we're not kind of recognizing the danger in some aspects. And that could be in some different areas as well, because of other aspects going on with Pluto. And we'll get into those in a little while, because they're part of a grander aspect, like this Pluto square Mars. That is part of a grander aspect. Like there's a T square there. And, also we still have this T square towards Saturn with the nodes and Uranus. So there's a lot of pressure on our authorities at the moment. There are sudden shifts and changes there. vice versa. There's pressure on authorities, and in turn, there could be a lot of pressure put onto societies. But, Uranus is the enlightenment, it's about higher consciousness. It's about, and the North Node's at 22 degrees, it's overcoming self-limitation. So on one hand, we are being pushed into this awareness, but on the other, many can't get their hearts around it, or are just going along with the status quo. And, there's a lesson here about being authentic. And some of us are being authentic, though. And the reason why I say that is because the moon and sun are in trine to the goddess Vesta in Aquarius. Now, I've said before in the past that trines, it's an easy flow, but sometimes we can take that flow for granted. And, this aspect between, with what's going on here that I've just spoken about, the easy flow. I mean, Vesta in Aquarius, her passion is all about humanitarian causes. That's what lights her fire in this aspect. And 8 degrees represents Saturn, which represents authority. So going probably on a humanitarian cause, but with the traditional values in mind, and being very detached, though, because Aquarius can be very detached emotionally. Geminis are very detached emotionally. They're air signs, and that is an air sign trait. So basically, we're on a mission to fulfill humanitarian causes, but, and it's a big but, we can tend to be too much in our passion and disconnected, where we can neglect, the people that are close to us, the people that matter. So we can just take it for granted. We can take, our emotional stuff for granted and not really, be in wholeness. So, this is the overall picture, putting it all together is how I'm reading these individually. So we also have a kite with the South Node in trine to the goddess Juno and Neptune, in trine to the goddess Ceres. So this is kind of like an air grand trine here. But we do have Neptune in Pisces, but he's in retrograde. So, we can be in a little bit of escapism with this detachment. And obviously, most of you know, it's not obviously, I shouldn't say that word actually. As most of you know, the South Node represents our comfort zone. So it's like not wanting to really make that shift forward, or being afraid to make changes, or to facing up to how we feel about things emotionally. So I think many of us can be too much in our heads and not enough in our hearts. And we're just acting on logic and reason. And we really want to stay in our comfort zones, but we are being pushed out of our comfort zones in a pretty big way. And we have been for a little while now. So at the top of the kite, we have Uranus and the North Node. So there's big opportunities here, like I said, to overcome self-limitation, to see the bigger picture, and to be passionate about our humanitarian causes. I mean, Aries They are the fighters of the underdog. But what we need to be careful of is this T-square here. You know, Ceres in opposition to Pluto. I mean, that in itself is pretty dire, you know, because it's like Pluto just like takes things out. And Ceres does represent our resources, our nurturing resources, whether that be our diet. She's very much in control of our diets, you know, how we look after ourselves, how we look after our well-being. So there is an opposition here with Pluto, who either exposes, exploits, or destroys in his negative aspect. But in his positive aspect, he also enlightens, you know, and, you know, sometimes exposure is good, exposure is needed. But in square to Mars, you know, it can be a little bit overly destructive. It can actually turn violent. So if we're going on humanitarian causes, we must, you know, do it in a controlled way. You know, we must strategize and keep our self-control. But, you know, to me, this portrays like a lot of stirring up of negativity, you know, where 33 is the master number of being in the know. It's, you know, knowledge, you know, super knowledge. You know, they say in the Freemasonry, like 33 degrees is basically mastery, but it's mastery of the whole. So to me, showing the whole, knowing the whole of something. And that doesn't necessarily apply to us all. But like I said, there is this kind of like awakening going on. But when we first awaken, things can seem pretty dark. And, you know, things aren't looking too good globally at the moment. And, you know, some of us are facing up to that. You know, certain things that are coming out, you know, we just need to be true to ourselves. We need to see the picture, feel the picture, and get a grip of it all, but not allow ourselves to be exploited, not allow ourselves to be controlled or over dominated, or, you know, we need to be staying our self-power. Don't lose control. You know, but the good thing is Mars is in Pisces, so he's kind of slowed down a lot in Pisces. Because with Uranus in Aries here, and Mars is the ruler of Aries, it's like, wow, things could happen a little bit too fast, a little bit too quickly. But I think it's kind of well paced out with Mars in Pisces, but it's emotional. You know, it affects us emotionally, but sometimes those emotions are a little bit too deep or a little bit too overwhelming to truly get a grip on or to face up to things in a more authentic way. And, you know, another aspect we need to watch out for is this square with the Moon, Sun, and Jupiter. Now, this is where we need to be careful when we're on our mission that we don't get taken for a ride or led up the garden path. You know, because Jupiter in square to our Moon and Sun can be the trickster. So, you know, that's something we really need to watch out for, that, you know, we're not neglecting what really matters, but we're also fulfilling our mission we can't force people to see what we see. We can't force people to know what we know. And, we should not ever be in that position, whether we're receiving that or giving that. And, everybody's entitled to an opinion. But in this instance, it can be kind of over opinionated, or maybe there's, panic, a little bit of panic. I just feel there's a lot coming out in the media, and but a majority of it looks pretty negative. But it can create emotional eruptions and a little bit of depression. Can just feel a little bit dark right now. But for those of us that are in the know, we know how to ride these waves, and we're learning that very quickly. And it's even hard for us to swallow at times. Do you know what I mean? It's very frustrating, but we just got to keep the faith in ourselves, in our own uniqueness, in our own abilities, and be true and honest with ourselves, or give ourselves like the space to really nurture ourselves into that. Let's not neglect the things that are important, and definitely stay in our self-power. But as we go towards the end of the month, I just feel things will become a little bit more rapid. So the energy is really fast-paced at the moment. The information that's coming out is very fast-paced, and we all need time to get our heads around it, or some of us do. And, but like I said, just be patient with yourself and keep a low profile, and, stay in your self-power, form your own opinions, Anyway, I'll leave it there for now, and sending you peace and much love. Take care.